What is up, everybody? Welcome to Sixers Postgame Live. Sixers get the L here in one of the more frustrating games I have ever seen in my life. 97-92, Sixers go down 3-1 in the series. 2 games now, back to New York. Joining me, he is Sean. Give him a follow on X at Sean_Bernard1. What's up, Sean? I'm defeated.
Yeah, that was a tough one to swallow there. Story of the series, really, is that it was for the taking. The Sixers did not do it. The Knicks looked like they wanted it more down the stretch, and then they just went out and took it because of it. So super frustrating. A game that they absolutely had a chance of winning again, as all 3 losses that they have now picked up were the case. So very frustrating result. Another year that we're kind of doing this dance.
New coach, same result. Like I don't even know where to proceed on this post-game show. The offense, I mean, as bad as that offensive rebounding was, and we're going to get into that, like I start at the top.
Yep.
And the offense we saw from Nick Nurse, the lack of ball movement, nothing but desperation shot after desperation shot, like literally just pass the ball around with 5 seconds remaining on the perimeter and jack up horrible, horrible shot selection. We saw Tobias Harris get cooked all series long. And the fact that we still have Nick Nurse opting for him on Jalen Brunson late in the game, I don't even know, man. I honestly feel really bad for Embiid. 44 minutes. Yeah, he struggled in the fourth quarter. He's clearly hurt. But they had 0 offense in the fourth quarter. Horrific decision-making. Absolutely nobody can convince me this was a home game for the Sixers today. Sixers fans got bullied. I'm just going to call it as it is. Just an embarrassing showing from Sixers fans. One of the most pathetic collapses I've seen from the franchise in a long time. Like you said, Sean, different players, different coaches, same shit every year. The Sixers stars just continue to not be able to handle the biggest moments, man. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, there's a ton to get into there, and you're right that it starts at the top. And to start with Nick Nurse there, for starters, probably the biggest decision that was made in this game was Joel Embiid played the entirety of the second half, all 24 minutes, the first time in his career that he's done that. And I think that was a mistake. That I get it. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't type of situation because of the plus-minus stuff. This is now the 11th postseason game of Joel Embiid's career in which he's a positive plus-minus in a game that they lost. Super frustrating that that's even the possibility. But I do think that, like, you just can't do that. That this is not a guy who had it at the end for a large reason because you did not give him a quick win. And obviously, you want to be able to do that. In an ideal world, that he's just capable of playing the full 24. But you do have to handle him differently. And I do think that was a mistake and a reason why he did not have it down the stretch there. But beyond that, somebody else has to step up as well. The story of the series was always the Knicks players. They had the guy that made that one extra effort player, hit that one shot that the team needed, and the Sixers simply didn't. Even stuff at the end, Kyle Lowry tipping it out, making the type of winning play, and then a guy like Tyrese Maxey not being in the position or having the awareness of where to be in that space, that hurts. You saw the youth from him there, so a ton to be frustrated about, and really just there needed to be somebody else, but Joel Embiid and the Sixers team did not get it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't put too much on Embiid in this one.
No.
I can't. Like, he played the entire fourth quarter. What did he have in this game? Embiid finished with 27 points, 10 boards, 6 assists. He had 2 blocks. But the amount of, like, contested shots he forced out at the rim, like, you could probably triple that number at the rim. That's how good his rim protection was in this one. But, yeah, I'm looking at the shot chart here, man. He was 0 for 6 in the fourth quarter. 0 of 6. And I don't know if that's the offense. I know he doesn't have his legs. To me, like you said, that is not about Joel Embiid. That is about Tyrese Maxey. And we're going to shift to Tyrese Maxey here, who had one of his worst games. Maxey, unfortunately, 23 points, 8 of 21 from the field, 6 boards, 6 assists, 3 of 9 from 3. When we needed him to get going, it just didn't happen, man.
Yep.
What happened?
What they were missing was, we talk about it all the time, these little sparks of offense that he goes, where he rips off a quick 8 points with back-to-back threes and a rapid-fire just layup around the rim. We never got that from Tyrese, that he never had that moment where he put his imprints on this game. And that's what we're expecting at this point, that you are the number 2 guy. You are the guy that we have praised, gassed up as this dude who is as talented as he is, that the proof is in the pudding for how good he is. And it's still a little bit too much of Number one, I still think he's sensitive to stepping on toes and not being the guy to go out there and get a bucket in a way that this Sixers team desperately needs to be the case. And number two, like we saw youth from him for really the first time. That I don't remember another moment where Tyrese Maxey wasn't prepared and ready to go eye for eye at the moment in the way that it just didn't feel that way tonight. Like it felt like to some extent the moment was a little too big for him, and I was surprised to see that for him.
Yeah, it was really difficult to watch. Here's his shot chart. Not good, Sean.
No.
Good, man. I don't even know where to go. I go to the offense. I just thought they weren't generating enough ball movement. I thought, and this is, again, more Nurse than Tyrese Maxey. Like,
Yes.
I don't understand why the offense just suddenly became so ISO heavy. I don't understand. And do you have any answer to that? Like, what? It's like we complained about the same thing with Glenn Rivers last year, and we were literally watching the same offense where no one wants to shoot the ball, no one can hit shots in big moments. It's the same thing.
Yep. And it got worse throughout the game too. That when you looked at like the first quarter, there were a couple like nice Kelly Oubre cuts that Embiid was finding him on, some around the rim finishes. I thought it was a decent Oubre game, even though he still had some inexcusable mistakes like that 3-point foul and stuff like that. But throughout the game, it was just more stand around Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey and watch. And it's very frustrating that I do put a lot of that on Nurse, that you just have to have things be ready to scheme guys open. But on the other hand, like who? Like there isn't truly a third good player on the Sixers team. That is the Maxey and Embiid show, and there isn't that guy. Even a guy like Lowry, who's had his flashes, or a guy like Batum, who we've praised and has been very good. They're not guys that can go out and save you in the way that somebody need to bail this team out. Now, you can point this finger right back and say if Maxey's just straight up better in those moments or Embiid is straight up better in those moments, that's a different discussion here. But in reality, you're living and dying with these guys to an extent that isn't fair to a team from a team concept and is very frustrating and inefficient.
Yeah, I just thought Embiid's timing with Oubre and Maxey in the pick and roll and the DHO was really bad today. It was always off.
Yeah.
Every single possession, especially late in the game, was either a turnover or a contested jumper. The Sixers really had they just lost their ability to attack the paint, attack the rim. They didn't have it. And look at Maxey, 4 of 9 inside the paint. And it goes back to, like, I don't know, you could call me wrong. That's fine. But like this, everyone says the Sixers issue is, not having a competent big when Embiid's on the bench. But for me, it's Tobias Harris. To me, it's the Sixers' lack of wings that can create their own shot. To me, it's not having an extra ball handler that can move the ball and create for others. So that's my biggest issue. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, to kind of just call a spade with the Tobias Harris situation is when you have that amount of assets tied up in one guy, that percentage of the cap, I believe it's right around 28% for Tobias Harris number, making $40 million, a top 30 paid NBA player. You're expected to bring more than he really ever has to this team. And he's even played probably his worst stretch of basketball this season, that the entire time of his era in the Sixers uniform, which has been far longer than any of us really expected to be the case, and cannot wait until you can better use those assets this summer. But this feels the worst that he's played, that it doesn't equate to winning. To give him, like, I try to give him a little pat on the back with like the effort stuff that he was throwing himself at the boards and trying on defense, but the amount of grasping at straws that is for a dude that's expected to be the number 3 option and that there were real deal expectations for his entire tenure is so just insane that we have to do that. So it just has to be better. There's no defining skill that makes him deserve to be on the floor during these stretches, and I cannot wait until that contract is off the books fully.
It's unbelievable, man. Like, his inability to close out, his lack of rebounding, his hesitancy from 3, and the fact that he's still freaking out there in the fourth quarter getting cooked time and time and time again by Jalen Brunson. I have no words. That's Nick Nurse again. What are we doing?
And this ties in like the larger conversation, the rebounding talk, which we should address, like getting killed on every spare ball. A lot of that is Tobias. That's not a guy that he gets those. And I always like, obviously the Denver Nuggets are currently the gold standard, defending champs, and the team that I would probably think is in the driver's seat to get it done again this year. When you think about how their offense works from a construct, that I don't believe it is the Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray stuff that the Sixers team are missing. And yes, Maxey and Embiid both came up small. but it's the Aaron Gordons, it's the Josh Hart, it's these guys that are superstars in their role, and the Sixers just lack those. Like, it's a different story if there is a guy able to make those hustle plays, scrap those, just the plays that ended up deciding this game. And I do think Harris is very tied to the rebounding issues, and ultimately I think that's what I would probably assign the number one blame today, was just not getting a rebound.
Yeah, the Sixers got out rebounded. Let me pull it up here. 62 to 54. But like, it was way worse than that. Like, if I guarantee you, like, the numbers were actually decent in the first half. I would love to know what the second half numbers look there. Because honestly, Sean, like, there was a point in this game where the Knicks were getting 2-3 extra possessions every single possession. Like,
Yes.
it was to a point where every single shot they took, I was expecting them to get the offensive board. It was that bad. Is that hustle? Is that scheme? Like, I know the Knicks are a great rebounding team. That's also on Embiid. That's on Tobias Harris, Kelly Oubre. Like, where's it stop?
I mean, the Embiid stuff, like, he's not really a good rebounder, and the numbers will always tell you that he is, but he's not a guy who has, like, a rebounding skill, that he's 7 feet tall and around the rim a lot, so he ends up with them. But he's not a dude who goes up and gets the contested boards or has an instinct for where the ball is going to be. And that's especially the case when he can't really jump off his leg right now or be that mobile to track stuff down. So Embiid, even in his best case, is not this elite rebounder, and he was far from that. Then when you look beyond that, like, there's some undersized opportunities here that a guy like Kyle Lowry is just not going to be in the mix. And he threw his body around and boxed out and tried. I give him credit. But like, there is not this, like, I think when we look at the bigger picture here and looking at the summer with the cap space for maximizing this roster, you absolutely have to pair Joel Embiid with a guy that is like going to get boards. And I know obviously revisionist history and how things went south with Ben Simmons, like, we never think about that, but he was important in that regard for being a guy to clean up the defensive glass. They need another guy like that. And obviously he was not the answer by any means, not remotely want to go down that path, but that specific skill set is something that they never really addressed since he's left. And I do think is important to bring back as we look at the long term here.
Yeah. As much as I want to complain about Maxey and the bench and the rebounding, I still go back to Nick Nurse. I thought the game plan against Jalen Brunson was dog shit. I don't understand why the Sixers consistently, just let him take Sixers defenders one-on-one throughout the entire game. Like, they swarmed him games 1 through 3. They made him, hesitate and think a little bit just for a half second. But in this game, the defensive philosophy on Brunson was just to kind of let him kind of do what he wants. And that was mind-boggling to me. I'm just at a loss of words. All right,
I liked like the strategy in games 1 and 2 where Josh Hart obviously murdered this team, that it was the Sixers saying, we're not letting Brunson, like, we're not letting get his, and if the other guys are going to beat us, so be it. It kind of flipped where they're like, we're going to get Brunson basically have at us and not believe that he can individually win a game. And he basically just did tonight. That, like, they did shut down some of these leaky faucets of Josh Hart pouring in points, and even Deuce McBride still got his a little bit tonight. But it was Jalen Brunson that you gave an opportunity to be the star that he is, that we knew even with him not playing the best version of himself. We've seen him do this, that this shouldn't be a surprise. Like, he's done this on plenty of occasions now, and it felt like he kept feeding off the opportunities to continue to get going. And the momentum, like, he ran away with this in a way that should not be possible of happening from the Sixers perspective.
Mm-hmm. The Sixers bench was 2 of 11 shooting. They had 3 turnovers, 2 assists, 6 points. That is just pathetic, man. All right, let's get some comments. There's a lot. Thank you everyone for watching. Let us know your thoughts on the game. 5 bench points. Batum 3 times, and Melton and Reed a total of 4 shots taken. Batum, oh my gosh, really bad game for Batum, who got owned on that one dunk. I think Cam Hart, not Josh Hart.
Yeah.
I'm still in draft mode. Josh Hart blocked him at the rim. Play Mo Bamba over Reed. It was planned, flat out awful. No reason to not sit Embiid there. No actions run at the end. Yeah, I mean, again, if you're looking for a show that's going to get you optimistic about the Sixers' future. This is not it. Freddie says toughness. It all comes down to toughness. The Knicks wanted it more, and their fans. Man, the fact that like you had that many MVP chants for Jalen Brunson at the Wells Fargo, and it really took until like the third quarter to finally get the Sixers fans back in this game is just pathetic. It's not good enough.
No, very embarrassing stuff. And like I get it. Obviously we get the economics of how this happens and the tickets and how things work, but just very frustrating that like the Knicks just got a boost for 4 straight games from a home crowd. And like for a city like Philadelphia, man, I never thought that would ever be possible.
Steven says this wasn't a ref game. I will say the refs were horrible.
As usual. I expect it by now.
But it's almost laughable at this point. Like they're like, for example, and I'm not saying like it made a difference in the game whatsoever. But what I am saying is it's so bad that like Tobias Harris gets blocked and the ball goes freaking out of bounds and they call it out of bounds on the Sixers. Or the Maxey out of bounds one.
Yeah, the Maxey one was
Maxey gets the ball, and that could have been a momentum-changing play.
Fast break,
which Maxey's excellent at, and the refs totally miss it and call it out of bounds. It's things like that that's like I'm just numb at this point.
Yeah, there is like a legitimate NBA refereeing issue. And like I still put this mostly in the referee standpoint of like you reward guys getting away with a lot of the stuff. And people are going to be complaining about the Joel free throws. He did real deal get fouled on a ton of those. Like, I mean, he was just doing Joel Embiid things. He was getting guys up in the air and then taking advantage of it. Jalen Brunson does the exact same stuff. And the offensive foul that they called on Maxey where he kind of like ran into DiVincenzo, like Jalen Brunson does that on every single play, every single play. So the pick and choose stuff just looks bad on everyone. And that as a league-wide issue, the NBA needs to really kind of get things in order for a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, like the biggest thing in like refereeing is just being consistent, man.
Yeah.
And like for it to be like soft on one end and physical on the other, it's been bad. But that's, again, not the reason why the Sixers lost this game. Jonathan says Embiid politics, Sixers fans, and the city. He's not a go-to guy. Nick says 6 bench points. Matty B says, I can accept a lot, but to be bullied under the boards and not being able to get defensive rebounds was pathetic.
Absolutely.
The same old Sixers, man. It's the same thing. Same stuff we've been talking about for years. I tweeted this, like the fact that you have a top 3 player on the planet, you have an ascending superstar in Tyrese Maxey. You should be like, vibes should be outstanding. You should be like, here we go. But the loser energy from this franchise is just unmatched. It's the same stuff, man. It's the same stuff.
And you feel it over the flow of games too. Like when the tides start to turn, it's like the first thing in your mind is like, oh, here comes another one, or now they're doing it again. And like, I don't even know how you fully break that. Like you just have to kind of get over it and find a way to win, but it's there. It's absolutely there. And it's pretty infectious from a fan base perspective.
Embiid should just sit the rest of the series. Kyle Lowry, only winning player. Maxey was atrocious bringing the ball up. Yeah, it was interesting in the second half where I thought Nurse wanted to kind of have him be more on the perimeter to pull Hartenstein out and kind of open up the paint a little bit. But it also led to a lot of turnovers, whereas probably that ball should have been fed through Kyle Lowry. But yeah, that's been one of the biggest issues on this team. They don't have more than one ball handler, and that really showed up today.
Yeah, it totally did. And like, there just has to be more guys on this team. That it feels like you look around at every NBA team and they have that, like, there's a guy that's capable of stepping up. That when the game script switches, you have a chance to play a guy that can do things in a different angle. That there is that bench piece. Like you see with this Knicks team, that even a guy like Bogdanovich that got hurt. Like think about where he would stack up on the scale of bench players in this Sixers conversation. And that's a dude who, even before the injury, wasn't really in the regular rotation a ton. He would absolutely be the best bench player on the Sixers team from at least a scoring perspective or a willingness to create offense perspective. So there is a larger roster construction conversation to be had here. I know we entered the season with the talk of this even being like a potential gap year where you can truly construct the roster as it needs to be designed. But the pressure is going to be on Daryl Morey this summer to change that because it's straight up unacceptably happening year in and year out.
Yeah, totally agree. Told y'all Brunson was coming. Y'all thought Brunson was an elite. No one said that on this show. I got to give credit to Brunson. I thought
For sure.
I thought he was scrappy. I thought he was a baller. He's everything we want Tyrese Maxey to be in a few years. Anyway, another like ridiculous call was the one where he pump faked and leaned into Kyle Lowry and got the N1, things like that.
Yeah.
Where like I'm pretty sure the NBA banned those kind of plays. But anyway, I thought he was great. I mean, he was like literally the entire Knicks offense. And I thought one of the biggest stretches in this game was at the end of that third quarter when Brunson actually got hurt, left the game, and Nurse decided to keep Embiid on the court in the fourth quarter, and nothing really happened. Like there was like a stretch of like 3 or 4 minutes where the Sixers couldn't push the lead whatsoever or get momentum. That was a big moment in this game. Credit to Brunson, man. He's terrific.
Yeah, he's tough as nails. He played incredibly well. You got to tip the hat for him that this was a superstar performance. He got it done on the biggest stage. I see people pulling up my old takes of the Jalen Brunson is Trae Young with a better.
I will say he foul baits way more than Joel Embiid, and I will never hear it. I will never hear it. There's no doubt.
And I don't fully take that back either. I think people undersell how cold Trae Young has been at Piers. We've seen the him rip the Sixers heart out just in a very similar way to this. Obviously, Brunson is a little bit of the better player, and you do have to give him the respect for the way that he did shoulder this franchise today. I mean, if I take this series aside, like he is truly one of my more favorite players to just watch play. It is pretty disgusting when you have to see it in a 7-game series and you see kind of the hatred that is coming out from this. But the bottom line is he did get the job done on the biggest stage. You love players that do it like that. And if he wasn't going against the Sixers, he's a guy I'd be rooting for.
Yeah. Hunter says Embiid had terrible looks in the fourth. I thought his looks in the game he had 50 points were bad too. He was just making shots.
Yeah.
I thought the shot selection in the last 2 games has been really bad. But that goes to what we said at the start of the show, just no ball movement whatsoever. Guys just standing around, not enough movement. Or there was times when, like in this game, where Brunson was the entire offense and the Sixers should have pushed the lead way more. And they didn't. Nicholas says, trade Embiid and Maxey, start over, sell the team, move them to just points. That's great. Agreed. It's getting bad. G League player would be better than some players on Sixers. I mean, it goes to Tobias Harris. I mean, can we really take this Sixers team seriously when Tobias is out there in crunch minutes, when he's just
$40 million
and just not closing out on defense, not rebounding the basketball, not hustling, like loser energy, man. I guess the silver lining is, we're truly counting down the minutes here for Tobias's last time in Philadelphia, because my God, Knicks have a bunch of trouble winning that fourth game. They're getting short. John says, I heard Philly content creators saying Maxey is better, and they have figured out Brunson. I mean, to be fair, the Sixers did really good on Brunson in games 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I thought that game plan went out the window in this one. So, like starting lineup versus starting lineup, I still, even though the Sixers are down 3-1, I still think the Sixers are better.
Yeah,
it's just been the role players for the Knicks that have really been the difference, and the Sixers role players are just falling flat.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely the case. These Sixers are absolutely still the more talented team here. That we're having a much let's not let it get lost. Like this very easily could be a 2-2 series. This very easily could have been 3-1 in the other direction. When you look at how these games actually played out, that they've all been coin flip games. That has gone right down to the wire. And a credit to the Knicks that they took it. They got the job done. That's not an excuse or defending the Sixers team. But it's not like this is a series in which the Sixers have had no chance. They've been in control of play for majority of the time in each of these games. So disappointing. It sucks. It's a lesson and a message to this team from the way that they are constructed, and a testament to the Knicks for having a little bit of that championship identity, which this Sixers team just can't figure out how to find.
Please fire everyone, including players and fans. Keep Tobias. He's good.
It's a Knicks fan for sure.
For sure. That's amazing. We win this series with either Josh Hart or OG. OG was awesome today. Josh Hart as well. Jonathan says Nick Nurse has to coach and just not look at guys on the court. I don't think coaching is relevant in today's 3-point zone defensive style of play. Embiid doesn't place himself in the paint. And that was kind of weird, right? Well, because he was gassed, man. He was straight gassed in the fourth
It's
quarter.
like sitting in the corner.
But what was really great and a big part of why the Sixers were winning in the first half was Embiid, I think, was just bullying the Knicks in the paint in the first quarter. And the fact that I think he only had 1 3-point attempt and he had like 10 or 12 points in the first quarter. The Sixers were winning. Again, the Knicks weren't hitting shots whatsoever from the perimeter. But I thought they did a much better job getting the Embiid better shot looks at the paint. And in the second half, that stopped. He kind of just lost his legs, became a jump shooter, and the offense went in the toilet.
Yeah. All right. Question for you real quick. Is there any way this series could be looked at as a success? Like how things play out from here? Obviously, if they come back and win it, a massive success. Looking short of that is a way that they can show something that you would take this as a positive this series.
It's Maxey.
Okay.
For sure. There's no doubt. I think there's been some signs of relief. Like I do want Kyle Lowry to come back next year. I think he's a ball handler and he's gritty and tough, and that's something the Sixers team lacks. Clearly, they have been getting pushed around all series. Outside of that, I think it's clear. The silver lining is I still firmly believe, this is going to sound crazy, that you replace Tobias Harris with like a Ricky Council, and we're talking a different narrative here. I think he's that bad.
Yeah, I cannot wait for the end of the Tobias Harris experience, man. It feels like it's been 25 years.
It's so obvious that he gives you nothing.
There's just no, he's just like a straight up average basketball player being asked to be way more than he's not, or way more than he is. That check, he was never capable of cashing with his play. He just straight up wasn't, and it's just got worse through all the eras of Sixers basketball. And honestly, I think physically he took a significant step back this year. It feels like there's a level of lateral movement and athleticism that he used to have that he doesn't at all. And it's especially evident when you're getting in these small spaces with Brunson, who's trying to get to his spots. It feels like Tobias has aged pretty quickly this year.
But it's more than that. It goes beyond the box score. The entire game in Game 4, you saw the Knicks sag off of him at the 3-pointer and just clogs up the entire paint. Clogs the entire thing up. It was beyond obvious. And yet we don't adjust. And yet he's still clogging up the paint in the fourth quarter. I don't understand it. It's got to be written in his contract. If there is a silver lining, if there is signs of relief down the road here this offseason, it's that Tobias is not on this team.
And by the way, I do think as the Tobias Harris thing, I think that dude can't be on a championship team. I think he's one of these guys who has all these flaws, the not capable of coming up with the 50-50 balls, the just not having quite enough substance to his play in a way that the team needs. I don't think there's any world where he's miscast in a role. We've tried him in a million different ones. He's just not cut for the bright lights, big moments, or contributing to a contending team. And I think the future of Tobias Harris will be spending his passing years of his career in Detroit or Orlando or something like that.
Good riddance.
Yeah.
Good riddance, man. Remember those rumors of what if the Sixers fail this offseason, can't sign anybody, and then bring Tobias back on a smaller contract? That could be the end of me.
I wouldn't take him back on a minimum. I would not take him back on a minimum.
That would be the moment I truly question my fanhood and be the loser energy of this franchise, man. That would be it. That would be it. Nicholas says the Sixers stink, plain and simple. They stink. It's a waste of time being a fan. Years of frustration. Same bunch of losers year in, year out. All right. With a tough front court, that's how you rebound. And a big part of that is Embiid, too. We can't ignore that. There's been lots of situations in this series when Embiid's guilty as well. And it's just unfortunate. Diego, it's very simple why the Sixers lost this game. It's the effort. The Knicks out-hustled the Sixers on every play in that fourth quarter. Knicks just wanted it more. It goes to it's as simple as possessions. The Sixers had 82 field goal attempts. The Knicks had 86. It felt more than that, man. It truly felt more like every time in the fourth quarter, it felt like the Knicks got so many offensive boards to the point where it's just a given. Just like give them the ball.
Yeah.
Like there was a point in the fourth quarter where Embiid missed a pull-up and the ball went straight to Tobias, and Tobias went to grab it and it bounces off his hands. It goes out of bounds.
And you feel it too.
On the other end, you have guys like literally crashing, like Matisse Thybulle, like go from the perimeter to the glass, to the paint, and just grabbing the ball out of the air. Like it's just night and day, the effort.
And such like just a demoralizing way to lose a game. Like you just feel it being there, and the Knicks just take it. They just straight up outcompeted them on the glass, and like, yeah, that's like that cannot be forgotten when looking forward with this team.
Knicks are a better team, much tougher and smarter. I'll give them tougher and smarter.
Yeah,
there's no doubt. You can't deny that now. We are the better team, said Joel. Today plays with a lack of effort and injured. Anyway, dude played the entire fourth quarter, man.
Entire second half.
Like, I'm sorry, but if you're complaining about Embiid, you're just not watching. But he played the entire fourth quarter to give the Sixers a chance. Absolutely nobody else stepped up. Nobody. It's not an Embiid.
First time in his career he's played the entire second half start to finish. That he had never done that before tonight, and clearly not the 100% version of himself.
Somebody has a Twitter account named Art Vandelay. That is amazing. That's so funny. If you're a Seinfeld fan, that's hilarious. Jalen Brunson still Trey with a better pick and roll team, or
that was my take. I'm not walking that entirely back. I mean, like Jalen Brunson does grift harder than anyone wants to acknowledge, and probably worse than Trae Young, straight up. If we want to call a spade there, that is more what I mean. That Jalen Brunson is this tough, lovable underdog, while Trae Young is this villain that everyone hates. They play pretty similar, if we're being honest.
Yeah. Precious Achiuwa locking Embiid down in the fourth. That was my issue too. I mean, not just Embiid, but like the Sixers have so much size advantages on the Knicks, and watching littler guys just bully the Sixers around in the paint and things like that was just so frustrating. And then when Hartenstein went out, and Embiid basically played the entire, as we've seen, this is not new if you're a Sixers fan. We've seen Embiid in the second half kind of just patrol the perimeter rather than get down low. We've seen that many times. So they did not take advantage of that. And there was like a couple plays in the first quarter, or at least in the first half, where I thought they did a really good job of that, using that size advantage. The Embiid lob to Tobias at the rim, things like that. Just where did that go in the second half?
Yeah, very frustrating. And honestly, like when you think back to the season as a whole, I think that like Nick Nurse did a good job of gradually building onto this team from like a playbook standpoint that he continued to add, but they really hit a wall when Embiid got hurt, and it feels like there was a lot of progress lost and opened things up. That it got back to, these stand around, a lot of hero ball, guys watching, and there was not this free flowing, this movement, these duck-ins, this off-ball stuff nearly as much as there was early on in the year. Obviously, you got to deal with the injury, and it's kind of one of those things that it's tough to make better of that situation, but definitely disappointed in what this version of the offense looked like down the stretch. And that was one of my reasons for just kind of thinking this team could be different this year, was because of that, and it just did not exist.
Phil says mentally and emotionally exhausted being a Sixers fan. Speaking of, make sure you check out Trending in the AM, 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. I'm sure Phil will be talking everything Sixers, the lows, but also the highs of the Eagles draft as well. Be on the lookout for that 8 a.m. tomorrow.
I'll be on there Tuesday.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome, man. Where are you at as a Sixers fan, man? I'm exhausted. And that's also me because like I cover I'm tired from the weekend of the NFL draft. But like I'm defeated, man. I believe it's me. It's not the Sixers. It's me, because every time they pull you in, and I'm the idiot that believes. Like I do think there are pieces, role players on this team that match Embiid and Maxey as the best since probably the JJ Redick years, and
definitely
it's just not happening. And it is every time they pull you back in, they disappoint you every time.
Yeah, and for sure. I mean, like, to be honest, like, this year was a very weird year to talk about the Sixers, however you want to phrase it. Like, think about PJ Tucker started games for this Sixers team this year. Like, it was that long ago. It feels like it was forever, but that was this season. Like, James Harden was still on roster to start this year, and there were so many questions about what is the direction, what do they do from here, the gap year conversations because of all this cap space. And then what happened was Daryl Morey strung together enough to give this team a puncher's chance. That I still think that this Knicks and Sixers team are the second and third best teams in the Eastern Conference. This has been, in my eyes, by far the best first round matchup of any team or any teams in the NBA. So it's disappointing that this is kind of how the bracket fell and that they are running to the Knicks. I truly believe that both these teams, the Knicks and Sixers, would beat any of the Cavs, the Magic, the Pacers, the Bucks if it were to shake out any differently. But you got to play who's in front of you, and the Sixers are coming up short when the moment's small. So I don't think I'm as discouraged as probably the vast majority, but it definitely is frustrating to just watch and take, and it being the same story in a very different year.
Steven says, we don't want to hear it, but Morey told us it's all about next year. It's very true.
Yep.
And I have like pretty much 3/4 of the season, I was like, yeah, it's all about next year. Like, Embiid's hurt, all that kind of stuff. But, I guess we're fans. So, all right. Knicks are more cohesive, no doubt about
Absolutely.
that. I mean, look at their bench. The Knicks bench in this one was, without a doubt, the deciding factor in this one. They had 14 points compared to the Sixers 6. But that stretch where Deuce McBride went off was just massive for the Knicks, where the Sixers couldn't get anything from anybody else.
Yeah, it's very disappointing. Like, this did feel like a gut punch because by all definition, I think this just should be a 2-2 series, that it felt like this was one to be a destined, drag it out long series. And obviously this is a big hit from that winning 3 in a row does not look very likely to be in the cards for this Sixers team based on how this is going and how small the margins are in this series. So the reality is the reality. Unfortunately, they're down 3-1, and it's going to leave a lot more concerning questions than we have answers right now.
Raul says Knicks bench won them 2 games. Jalen Brunson won the third. It may be a butt kicking by the Knicks on Tuesday. Apparently, Bryson Stott just hit a home run. There you go. Any other comments, thoughts before you get to player of the game?
Yeah, nothing really. I'm defeated right now. That's one, like, even as it was spiraling, I did feel like the Sixers were going to find a way in that game, and it just never happened. That it was a frustrating way down the stretch for just nothing to be good. So very disappointing matchup in my eyes.
Yeah, man, just brutal. Let's get to our Sixers player of the game. All right, Sixers player of the game, Sean. Where are you going, man?
I'm going Kyle Lowry in this one. That it's slim pickings today. That I think I have concerns about everybody, but I do think Lowry, like we just saw, why he's a winning player, why he's valuable to this team. Even stuff like missing that free throw, executing, just being in the mix defensively the way that he was. I thought Kyle was real good. I think that he has made his influence felt on the Sixers team, doing some ridiculous, just grifting stuff as well. The foul that he drew on Brunson when Brunson was like laying on the ground was just like, ultimately would frustrate me if this was going against the Sixers, but you need them. You need those kind of dirty, grimy players. So yeah. I'll give it to Lowry for kind of making his impact felt. It was not, I don't aside basically 0% of today's blame to him. So I'll give him as my player of the game.
Yeah, I'll go with Embiid. Yeah, he struggled in that fourth quarter. But I thought his defense in the paint was terrific yet again. And I want to give a shout out to Knicks fans. I call it as it is. I thought they brought it today. There was 3/4 of this game that I thought they were, and I don't know what the population was like, how many Knicks fans there were compared to Sixers fans, but at least watching the game, it was obvious. It was very obvious. It felt like an away game for the Sixers, and shout outs to them for crushing that. That was very impressive. And that's like hurts my heart. That hurts my soul to like say things like that as a Philly sports fan.
Felt so gross hearing the MVP chants for Brunson in the Wells Fargo Center. That was pretty crushing to me to just be taking that in, and especially a guy like Joel, who is actually an MVP, a guy that has literally won the award, just kind of having to hear that in his own building doesn't sit right with me. So it is a shout out to Knicks fans for bringing it, for being there, all these things, but definitely disappointing, and just another area that I don't want to take as an L, but we kind of have to.
Yeah, Howie cooked for a reason. He's a prophet. We're getting some Eagles comments. I know 10 Knicks fans, 8 of them are still on eggshells with their health situation. I mean, yeah, I don't know how far they're going to go, but I mean, they just pushed the Sixers around, and they deserve it. So let's get into our grades for tonight.
Don't you hear me? Sweetness and light for my restless mind. Please give me a way to escape this world gone astray. You could give me a little peace of mind in these troubled times.
All right, team grades, A to F. How would you grade today's performance?
It's an F, man. This is just straight up a failure. This is something that the game was here for the taking. This was another winnable game. It just took a little extra effort, a little extra something, and they were unable to get that done. You can point at every single one of these guys, from Joel Embiid to Tyrese Maxey to Tobias Harris to Nick Nurse. But the bottom line is nobody did quite enough to get the job done. Nobody was able to elevate and just take this game that was there to be took. And the Knicks absolutely did. So for my mind, this is another game where it's more about the Sixers losing it and a straight up failure because of it.
It's an F. What's lower than an F? Is there anything lower than an F? Because, I mean, you can talk about the rebounds and the lack of effort. Kills me. And I'm screaming at the TV during the game. You could talk about the amount of Knicks fans that embarrass Sixers fans at Wells Fargo. You could talk about Embiid not showing up in the fourth quarter, Maxey not showing up in the fourth quarter. There was Tobias Harris being on the court with less than 5 minutes remaining. You could talk about the offense that literally was just desperation shot after desperation shot. Just pass the ball around until 5 seconds remaining. That's shit that we had to live through with Doc Rivers. That is unacceptable with Nick Nurse.
Yeah.
And as I said 1,000 times during this show, my issues is with Nick Nurse. And this is coming from a Nick Nurse guy. I have legit concerns about what we just saw over the last 48 minutes.
Yeah, I was very, very underwhelmed by Nick Nurse in this series so far. And they felt unprepared to an extent today, which is just straight up unacceptable. So very disappointing from him. I totally agree with you that I do think this was a failure in a lot of regards, with him very much being close to the top of the list there. And very frustrating that that was supposed to be a huge source of just positivity for this team, was having this new voice, this guy who's done it before, who is a proven winner, and it didn't translate whatsoever. So very frustrating there, and I'm surprised that that's one of my top takeaways, to be perfectly honest, based on my expectations going in.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah. Anyway, Philly special cards. I freaking hate our fans who are idiotic and want to trade Tyrese and JoJo. It's not going to happen, man.
Yeah, so, it is idiotic.
Yes, I agree. Steven says maybe twice hit his season average. About Tobias Harris, maybe twice hit his season average. Is that seriously asking too much? Dude, the bench had 1 point in the first half. What? That's impressive to have 1 point. And that was a free throw by Nico Batum. Let's talk
about embarrassing.
It's amazing. It's just incredible how it's just the same things we complain about every single year with this team. Diego says, let's talk about Buddy Hield being unplayable. Well, Nurse went to DeAnthony Melton in this one.
And
campaign, which the campaign minutes were pretty solid. I don't know. I can't really pump up anybody there. I'm not beating up that dude. I want to see the dude succeed. All right, Sean, let's wrap it up, man. Final thoughts on this one. Plugs.
Yeah, this is a heartbreaker, man, that we're doing this again. We did it all over again this year. Got the hopes up and they're coming crashing down. So we'll see how things play out from here. I would like to see, just out of respect, the Sixers team win another one. Also would not shock me if the doors get fully blown off in the next matchup. But the bottom line is the game still has to be played. So we'll see what happens when that goes down. As far as for me, you can follow me on Twitter at Sean_Bernard1. I will have a video dropping on Sixers Digest where all the Knicks fans can run their victory laps for everything that I've said on there. So make sure to tap in for that. That'll be coming out in about an hour. And we'll have a ton of new content from the Sixers side and shifting over more towards the wide NBA scale if this series does end as it's looking right now.
All right. Best Sixers follow there is, period. At Sean_Bernard1 on X. You'll be thanking me later. I'm tired, man. We did a ton of NFL draft coverage the last few days. Watch parties. I've got scouting reports, like 4 to 5 minute videos on every single prospect they drafted. Go check it out on the channel. Tomorrow night, Party on Broad, we will be doing a draft recap with me, Rob, and Ryan. Go check that out. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then, of course, we'll be back for Sixers postgame on Tuesday night. See you next year. Steven says, what's the downside of Ricky in the beginning of dude, don't even. We're not going to go there. That we don't have enough time. All right, we're going to end it. I have been running my head through a wall about that for at least a month or two. But here we are. And shocking, it's one of the downfalls of the Sixers. So one last time, he is Sean Bernard. Give him a follow next at Sean_Bernard1. I am Dives, Mr. Crockpot. We'll see you on Tuesday night for Sixers post game. Stay awesome, everyone.